Wait, what happening?
Joe bringing these knives to school. He could do Junior in.
For what?
But he fooled with Joe girl.
Mother sick. And you know, John, you don't back down for nothing. So that means you got a big fight tomorrow.
So whose side you on?
Side? I trying to stay in school, not Simpson Pen. We gotta tell somebody about this fight.
Tell somebody. I ain't no snitch. I mean cool, you know.
Wait, if you so cool, then you need to stay in school and stay out of the fight.
Yeah, but if I don't hang on Joe's side, him and these boys coming for me next.
All right, so we definitely gotta tell somebody. We gotta prevent the fight.
What I say, I don't want nobody call me snitch.
We could just call Crime Stoppers. You could report what you know, and nobody gotta know it's you.
So how did I boy?
All you gotta do is call them, or you text them through the Crack Crime Bahamas app, and nobody can know it's you.
Then the police come looking for me for more info, and when they finish with them, Joe them coming looking for me?
When you call Crime Stoppers, the calls go directly to Miami, and they don't ask nothing about you. Then you can get the pen from them, and they can claim a reward later using that same pen.
Plus, everything's scrambled, so nobody can read what you're saying.
Call 328-8477 from Nassau or 242-300-8477 from the Family Islands.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, streaming on GuardianTalkRadio.com and the Guardian Radio app, Nassau, Bahamas. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the management and staff of Guardian Radio.
Good yawning this morning and welcome back to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, your station for fresh news, smart talk all day. It is Monday, the 6th of January, 2025, and you are on the clock with Erin, Greene. On the clock, we have conversations that help us understand and navigate a rapidly changing Bahamas. I have a conversation lined up for today. Mr. Nuri asked that today we continue the conversation that we started at the end of last week on a legal question, which is, how can you remove a sitting prime minister? I'm going to wait for Mr. Nuri to get in studio before we begin that conversation. I know he really wants to be a part of it. So we're going to talk about a couple of things that are in the news before we get there. Up to the north, Justin Trudeau, it appears, is appearing to resign in the face of a parliamentary crisis. It's very interesting conversation, particularly since Canada is a Commonwealth member like us, even though their status in the kingdom, the United Kingdom, right, that family of colonies is slightly different from ours. And then I thought, is this why we getting all this cold weather dropping down from Canada? Is this Canada's response to Trump's tariff threats? I said, take this Arctic wind then and see what you could do with it. But just know that we are going to be feeling the chill for a little while. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to get into that story, what we can expect in the next few days in terms of the weather. Another story in today's Tribune Business section, I thought it was interesting, just going to mention it, Union to fight against Vibes Cartel concert. I don't like that headline because I don't think they're fighting against the concert. I think they are agitating around the policies, right? The policies in this space. And they are saying, they claim they have the sole authority over foreign artist permits. Concerns over artists' criminal background raised, and union criticizes promoters for premature advertising. And I think I just want to make the point that I don't think, except for that point about the criminal record necessarily, that this is a fight against Vibes Cartel, and it's very sort of problematic to frame it that way, because we're fighting Vibes Cartel. We're agitating to ensure that proper policies are in place to protect a product broader than, larger than one person called Vibes cartel. Another story in today's news, fancy dances. Fancy dances, another Tribune story. Fancy dancers miss out after title reversal. The Junkanoo Corporation of New Providence reversed the results in the 2024 Boxing Day Parade's Category B after protests by the group Colors, prompting the fancy dancers to consider legal action. We're going to go to page 4. Initially declared winners, the fancy dancers lost their title to Colors after an appeal decision that came 5 days after what the fancy dancers say was the stipulated 96-hour appeal window. Quote, we found out on social media, that's when we called in, close quote, said former Fancy Dancers chairman Carlos Pyfram. Quote, they never reached out to us before that. It was only after the news broke that we received a letter from them. Rules are put in place for everybody. The Valley Boys had to abide by the rules. Why do Colors not have to abide by the rules, close quotes. And the question I have is, wasn't this Boxing Day parade determined or ruled to be like a no penalty parade in the midst of the parade? How is it that an appeal could be launched if it's a no penalty parade? Anyway, I'm put that aside because we got lots to talk about today. Mr. Nuri has joined us. Good morning, Mr. Nuri.
Good morning this morning. Thanks very much for the invitation, Erin. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. So listen, I got one more story I want to run through, and then we're going to get to the question. How can you get rid of a sitting prime minister?
Okay.
I look at you like that because I'm not sure how you wanted to frame the question, but we're going to get to that in a minute. Here's the next story I want to touch on before we transition to this kind of legal discussion. In today's Tribune, grandmother's grief after boy 15 killed in accident. A heartbreaking tragedy unfolded in Bimini on January the 4th, 2025, as 15-year-old Anthorn Jaheim Johnson lost his life in a car accident that left his family and the close-knit community in shock. Anthorn, known affectionately as Jaja, was driving north along Kings Highway in Baileytown around midnight when he lost control of a silver Mitsubishi Colt. The car collided with a flatbed truck parked outside a private business. Despite the efforts of the first responders, Anthorn was pronounced dead at the scene. Officers from the traffic division in Grand Bahama are conducting, and I'm going to page 5 quickly, are conducting investigations into the crash. I'm going to stick a pin there. We're going to say condolences. I mean, there's nothing but condolences. Condolences to the families, loved ones, community members, neighbors, school classmates of Anthorn Jaheim Johnson. I'm going to talk about it, but I want to make this point that we are going to be very sensitive because we're talking about the loss of a child. The loss of the life of a child, a juvenile, a minor. Young man is 15 years old. And so the question we ask is, why was he driving? Again, this is not an indictment on him. Why is he driving? I want to ask, like, what's happening in Bimini? Is it because it's a small community that culturally they allow young people, teenagers, to drive motor vehicles even though the law does not permit them to drive them, right? Is that what's happening in Bimini? Because in New Providence, we would say, hey, if the young man were not behind the wheel, the accident would not have occurred, eh? But the question is, what's happening in smaller Family Island communities? Are we truly and accurately weighing the risks? Right? Are we weighing the pros and the cons? Are we making reasonable determinations and decisions? Because a 15-year-old, by law, cannot drive a vehicle, an insured vehicle. As soon as a 15-year-old jumps behind the wheel, even if the vehicle is insured, that insurance is invalid, invalidated because the driver is not permitted to drive any vehicle at all. I want to say condolences again to the family of this young life lost far too soon. There's a recklessness that is taking root in us. And all I could do, it rings out in my head every time, hearing my housekeeper, hearing my elderly neighbor, right, hearing my grandmother, hearing older people. You're playing that video game, you could drive just like you drive on that video game. And it just rings through my ears because somehow we do not take seriously the privilege of being able to operate a motor vehicle on public roads. We started off the year with a vehicle running into the lake. There's no indication of whether the driver was found. There's no indication in the stories printed in the media that the lake was searched for an unconscious driver or an even more tragic deceased driver. There's no indication that CCTV footage in the area observed an individual leaving the car. We just say nothing about it. Shortly thereafter, a second traffic fatality. Shortly thereafter, reported the first official traffic fatality. And then in Grand Bahama, a child dies in a 3-car accident. And no story that I have read indicates that the mother of the child, and we know that the mother of the child was unable, possibly, to respond. But was the child in a car seat? Was anybody able to determine whether the child was in a car seat, whether the car seat was strapped into the vehicle properly? We know it's a tragic situation. We know that the mother has to deal with the loss of her own child. It's not my child she killed, it's her own child that died, right? So what we're saying is, who cares for the child? Who is going to take the time to ensure that everyone involved did what they ought to do for the child? That leads me to my next point before we move on to our discussion this morning. When I talk about social issues, I prefer to talk about issues that I have experienced, right? And so today we're going to talk about something that I experienced. On my way to work this morning, I was minding my own business. I want to say to my texter who's talked to me about blowing my horn all the time, I ain't blow my horn at anybody this morning. And on my way to work, focused on navigating traffic because if I stay back to school, for many schools, I was approaching the Kemp Road light. The Kemp Road light was turning red. I observed a vehicle on the left side of the road, close to the Kemp Road light, put on its turn signal and motioned, like turn its wheels, indicating to me that they were preparing to enter the roadway. But I had a line of traffic behind me, and my first obligation is to not obstruct traffic. So I continued driving to the red light and stopped my car. I observed in my rearview mirror that the vehicle behind me paused and let that car out onto the road. And then I heard a voice talking to me, shouting at me, why I couldn't let them out if I couldn't see they had their turn signal on. And I minded my business. And they kept talking to me. And they got loud and loud, and I looked back, and I realized, yes, I was correct, that was a red plate. And so I said to them, boss, you in a red plate, you know. And they kind of said, so what, and continued to row me. And I reminded them that you were in a red plate, and I'm going to report you. And then they pulled up on the side of me and threatened to fight me. In fact, they said, when they see me on the road, I can get it. So I told them, well, you see me right now. Why don't you give it to me right now? I go on to tell him in front of all of these people so that they could acknowledge the gift that you gave me. He continued to threaten me, indicated to me that he knew who I was, and then indicated to me that he knew who my mother was. And then continued to tell me about how he was going to get me. I'm going to call the number on the red plate right now. It was GVO913. I attempted to take a picture of the individual. They saw me with the camera and quickly started putting their window up. I have a picture. I attempted to take a picture of the plate, but because we were in moving traffic, I didn't think it prudent to risk causing an accident to take the plate number, to capture a picture of the plate number. When the driver saw that I was attempting to take a picture of their plate number, they drove in a manner to avoid me being able to capture their plate number. But that's okay, because after the show, I'm going to the police. And I'm going to formally report them. You know why? Because it turns out people be doing all kinds of things in red plates. And I am very concerned that someone that was given the authority to operate a government vehicle decided that they were going to threaten another driver, someone who they knew to be a traffic advocate, with violence in the red plate. I'm not sure y'all understand what lawlessness and recklessness looks like, but I do. And if the powers that be refuse to do what they ought to do when they ought to do it, which is ensure that laws and policies are enforced, if for many reasons, including protecting citizens from rogue actors who intend to terrorize them. We've lost an infant child. We've lost a 15-year-old boy. This is just 2025. There are many other heinous traffic stories. Some have not been resolved yet, including the September 9th unfortunate and tragic traffic fatality involving a young man on a motorcycle and a vehicle belonging to a senior judge. This matter has not been resolved yet. Now, that is a serious matter separate and apart from the other matters that I attach the lawlessness and the recklessness to. But I, for one, will not be terrorized by rogue actors on the road, and certainly not those who have been given special plates, taxi drivers, limo drivers. I'd like to talk about the people who are supposed to be CDL carriers, commercial driver's license carriers, doing all manner of foolishness in the road. Who is supposed to protect us? See, I have a rule. Governments are like gods. You get what you deserve. That's why I govern myself, and it's time for us to begin governing ourselves. Many of you know that it is now against the law to drive while using your cell phone, to drive while holding your cell phone. Many of you know that and you don't care. Please. There are not enough of us. There are not enough of us to lose so many of us to recklessness and lawlessness on the streets. I get to the text line now, and once again, we say condolences to the families and loved ones of everyone who has died in a traffic fatality this year, including the 1-year-old infant and 15-year-old Anthon Jaheim Johnson. Let's go to the text line. Here we go. The same thing that's happening around the Bahamas. Children may steal the vehicle, not saying that's what happened. No, absolutely. And if we know that, see, because we know that. Because we grow up thieving our parents' car. This is my thing. You know what you did as a young person. Why wouldn't you protect your child from the consequences of their own actions, knowing that that's what children is do? Another text, Erin, Happy New Year. This is the Bahamas. We all know no one has time to yield to traffic lights, wear seat belts, strap children into car seats, and search for bodies from accidents. This is the Bahamas and not the U.S. I was blown off the light for not turning red on Prince Charles, and the driver went around my car to turn left on the red light. You need to talk about the ones who started going around cars to turn right on the red light. Here's another text. Morning, Erin. When are we going to stop apologizing and offering... Okay, people dying, but people just do things that they should not, like condolences for things that could be avoided. I'm not insensitive to driving a car underage. Why would the parents allow this? Text, I appreciate what you're saying. The text is trying to say, look, until we take it seriously, until we go no tolerance, then we're just going to continue offering condolences. But I offer condolences because it's a minor, it's an infant and a 15-year-old boys. Texas said, morning, call out the license plate number. I did, thank you. They're moving unalived persons in red plate vehicles. Your life was really in danger. What I'm saying is, I don't know who could be driving the vehicle. And it turns out that in some instances, the owner of the vehicle doesn't know who's driving the vehicle. All right, here we go. Thank you, Texter, for indicating don't read that part aloud. I do agree with you, though. That person who threatened you with harm needs to be taken seriously. They need to be escorted from their job today and taken for a psychological evaluation. Not to worry, a new commissioner is in place, and she just said Friday that things are going to change with regard to law and order. And it's incumbent, like, we start by governing ourselves. That's the role that we play in it. Texas said you need to buy a dash cam, Erin. I have. You know what it is? I haven't found the right clamp for the car that I have. That's really what it is. It keeps falling off, and I've actually broken a couple of phones trying to do that. Okay, last text. Happy New Year, Erin. All the best, my dear. Erin, you write, report the red plate driver to the police. They think they above the law. I tell you, we have a issue here with the concept of authority and the concept of having authority vested in you and what that means. Again, it doesn't mean that you now can make or break the rules. It means that you, first and foremost, have a duty to uphold the rules and enforce them. And we've seemed to have lost that, both in our political culture and our governance culture. And Texas said, I agree with what you said, Erin. The infant is the innocent victim in this tragedy. Indeed, no control. No control at all. Let's go to the phone line, producer, and then let's go to a break, and we're going to start our conversation about what, it's not what you could do with a girl like Maria. Like, what can you do with a sitting PM? I don't know if we could do anything. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Erin. Good morning to your co-host.
Morning, sir.
Yeah, I would be 56 years old this year. I'm about an 8th generation Bahamian. I have been watching the way how the Bahamas govern. I've been an advocate and protest with governments. I've watched the system that has been in place. I've watched the way the government come to the people with these pretty talks. And to be quite honest with you, after 56 years, I don't think these governments have no interest in fixing this country. There's a system that they perpetuate that is producing the kind of people that you have been talking about whether it's road users, whether it's how the people behave on the jobs. There's a system that, and I don't know if there's a hatred to these people in government, that the Bahamian people keep voting and lying about how good they are. But there's something wrong. There has to be a hatred for the people that we have allowed to govern our country for the past 50 plus years. I pray that the younger generation open up their eyes and see what they need to see and hear what they need to hear and make the necessary adjustments by advocating not just for change, but for the right people that we need to govern this country, because the people we've been putting in government has no interest in fixing this country. And I don't know why there seems to be a hatred for the Bahamian people and the way how this country should govern. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like to lots of people. We hear athletes, we hear people who have left the country and have been able to achieve some degree of success, attempt to intimate, to share with us, right? Like how they feel about the Bahamas. And when they express like the same thing, like it feels like the Bahamas hates me, and then they only claim me when I do something well, or I succeed, or I give them an opportunity to put the Bahamas on the map. And then we turn around and call them ungrateful, without pausing for a moment in the discomfort and acknowledging, that's the same thing I feel. And maybe I'm upset because I don't know how to get out of here. I don't know how to move my talents to somewhere I think they will flourish. Lots of people are feeling that way. No, I'm not going to read that part, texter. I'm not going to read that part. See, the text is reminding me of some public figures that like to say things like, I can meet you outside. And it's important because now we could see that it's a part of the political culture. That people think that that is a way to disempower you. They're going to threaten you with violence, because that's what I can meet you outside mean. That's what it means. Anyway, producer, let's go to let's take this call, and then we have to go to a break after this caller. Good morning, caller.
Greene, how you doing this morning?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm in total agreement with the gentleman who just called us now about realizing what the system is all about. And I just thinking to myself a few days ago that any man or any individual, especially a man though, who has reached a certain age in this country, who's lived here all his life, and has reached the age like 40, 50 years old, and has not come to the conclusion that that gentleman has just reached in terms of something is wrong with the system and something is wrong with that individual. Because that individual has become well-adjusted to a sick, corrupt society. You understand me? And they have accepted things the way they are. But one suggestion I would like to put to the Bahamian people is this. In the future, when we want to elect individuals to lead us or represent us, right? Let's choose individuals who have ideas or vision or plan that they have presented to you that they themselves want to implement. So you empower them so that they are able to materialize that vision that they have brought to you. Don't elect individuals who come to you with sweet talk and they don't have like a personal peeve, like something that they are passionate about within themselves, that they see that they can bring bring to the people, that the people could use, that could benefit the country. If you understand the point I'm trying to make, Ms. Greene.
Yeah. I mean,
let us elect individuals with a vision, with a plan, who come to you and who show you, listen, if you elect, I am there, I am going to create this thing. You know what I mean? So when I leave office, I'm going to create something that you could look at and say, hey, that individual create that for us, and we are now the better off for it. Don't let people who come in there with party politics and party mentality and who toe party lines and who come with some manifesto that full of foolishness from the beginning, and that they never ever really go into it and materialize its things. And the individuals themselves who run, right, they are individuals who lack integrity and who lack, most importantly, like I said before, a vision or a plan that they are passionate about that could change this country. Let's stop this foolishness, man. Like in these bunch of jokers, man, like other gentleman said. But if you are 50 years old or above in this country, and you have not come to the conclusion that that gentleman who just called have come to something wrong with you, because you have become well-adjusted to a sick society. Thank you very much, Ms. Greene.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much, right? And is what you said right there, that we have become adjusted to a sick society. These things have become normalized, right? And so we there's like not a modicum of caution, but we pause for a moment when we address young people to understand that the behavior that we chastise them for has been normalized in their eyes. It's normal. They don't understand why you rowing them, because as far as they're concerned, this is the world that they grew up into. This is what was normal when they reach here, right? And it's more important to turn to ourselves. Because for me, what it is how are you in your 50s and 60s and not just blatantly breaking traffic controls, but then you puff up your chest to threaten the people that indicate to you, right, that you have broken a traffic control and almost caused an accident when they have the right of way. Then you want to fight them and big up your chest. See, what I say to those men and women that have that much bravado in their hearts, why don't you go and do something to fix your country? Since you mad at the government and you taking it out on other citizens, take that bravado and start a political party. Take that bravado and start an organization. It could be like a community watch organization where men in the community commit to being present in the community when women and children are about to ensure their safety. Like y'all have all that bravado in your heart, but you're using it to threaten people as opposed to build the country that you want. Anyway, we're going to a break. When we come back from the break, Mr. Newry, we can start, right? Yeah, man. How to get rid of a prime minister, if you even can, if it's even possible in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
Builder. You want to give your client the best material at the best prices, and you need to put food on the table. Well, check out these prices at Pinder Enterprises. 5/8 pressure-treated roofing ply starting at $36.68, includes VAT. By the way, all these prices include VAT. Gray Select Water Shield, $134.80. Felt, £15, $16.50, £30, $19.80. Owens Corning Duration Shingles and Certainty Landmark Shingles, $56.56 a bundle. Gallon of roof cement, $33.47. When it comes to screwing and nailing, Pinder got you covered. He got every nail and screw you could possibly need.
Love the show? Want to give your support? Become a sponsor today. Call 302-2300 for our rates and packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
Good morning and welcome back to On the Clock with Erin Greene. Okay, I just want this texter to know I got your text, but I'm going to save it to the end of the show. This conversation is going to carry on into Mr. Newry's hour, Guardian Radio AM, but let us begin now. Mr. Newry, I framed the question, how to get rid of a prime minister. That may seem very callous. It's definitely not framed from a legal perspective, right? Mm-hmm. But I just throw the question on the paper, how to get rid of a prime minister. It was a conversation that started in a WhatsApp group, local WhatsApp group called like Think Tank, right?
Yes,
And
the
it's
Bahamas Think Tank.
right, and it's filled with thinkers and legal minds, right? And so the question came up, I think, of can you remove a sitting prime minister? And I want to call the names of all of the people involved in the conversation, right? The conversation wasn't necessarily a public conversation, but one of the members, and I don't think the individuals mind that their positions are published, right? They took the effort to produce not just an opinion paper. I would produce an opinion paper. They are learned lawyers and judges, right, and former judges. So they took the time to intentionally craft a position, which was great. One of the members of the conversation published a second note, like a third note, which is also very interesting. We're going to talk about that. And it's in that space that the authors of the positions were called. So
Before you go on, there needs to be a definition or guideline or explanation of your WhatsApp group. What is the intention? What is its purpose? So we can move from there to start the conversation.
So it is essentially a think tank, a space shared by thinkers where you are free to throw questions or subject matters into the space. And then if people want to talk about it, they talk about it.
So more likely someone threw this particular question.
Right.
Or herald this particular question and challenge those thinkers there to expand, to define, to lay a position.
Yeah.
Yes. Again, just for the listening audience who's not aware, this think tank is by invitation only.
Yeah.
And it's filled with regular people and also intellectuals. Because at one point, and the reason why I brought that up, right, is I was challenged on whether there are if there's such a thing as a Bahamian intelligentsia, right? The person found the word foreign and accused me of making it up, right? In Bahamian intelligentsia. And I want you to give a definition of that also. So when we move forward to explain the space and explain this particular question, because I might have to call the names anyway. I'm not inside the group, so I can take the blame, right? Just so we can appreciate that we do have intellectuals in the Bahamas, intellectuals who are internationally acclaimed, locally acclaimed, and that we are proud of, right? So I just want you to explain that briefly. Forgive me.
And so, intelligentsia, like that's like you want to call it, people call it a class, but it's like a group of people. They could be connected, working together through a think tank, or individuals who engage the public domain with critical interrogation of everything and anything that is relevant to the Bahamas, right? And so this question arose, discussions about Junkanoo and the issues that arose in this season's parades, conversations on the economy, the introduction of AI, all different sorts of conversations.
And I want to ask you, the membership, is it made up like by one political party?
It's across. The membership of this group is broad, very broad. It's across political lines, across race, class, and culture.
Is it only secular, or is there religious people also inside this particular group?
There are religious people inside the group as well. I think what is interesting about the group is that it is very organic, right? It's very organic in the sense that nobody sets a topic, like it's Thursday, here's the topic for Thursday, discuss. People throw topics in, and it depends on whether it itself gains traction or not.
Is it like a legal space where only people are lawyers like that?
No, it's not a legal space. However, they're definitely learned and senior members of the judiciary in the space, and deference is given to them on legal matters. But they're open to, I guess I'm going to say, challenge by laymen and non-lawyers.
Okay, so now we have an outline, a parameter of what we could be discussing. I see we have phone calls already, but I wanted to introduce the conversation better, right? That's why I took the time to define what is this. And I have one more point, but I'll let the caller interject, and then I'll continue interrogating on what is it that we're trying to accomplish. Welcome to On the Clock with Erin Greene, caller. Go ahead, caller. Call Greene once, call Greene twice. Okay, call is gone. So we
And,
continue.
and this part of the conversation is important as well, because I guess for me, the question is, how do we bring those conversations to a broader audience? Right? Like, how do we...
This is private conversations, in quotes.
Yeah.
It's for the group.
Right.
It's not for the broader Bahamas.
Like they weren't publishing a paper.
No.
They weren't publishing a formal position paper on the matter, but they took it seriously enough, to be accurate. Their intention is to be accurate. But how do we create a space where these types of conversations can take place, and in a way that's accessible to the broader public? Because the public want to know. The public want to talk about these things.
Yes.
Right? And that's why I frame it like that, like how you get rid of a prime minister. And so it takes some blocks in between, right, to bring this conversation to the public.
Okay. So I just sent you something to read, right? In Canada, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, could resign as early as Monday. There's a number of his sitting MPs on his side who say, man, I'm not happy with you as Prime Minister anymore. We are making steps to remove you. And in the write-up, they're saying he plans to preempt that removal, that formal request for him to remove, and resign beforehand. I just put that as out there too, because you use that as part of our conversation. Also, I think when the FNM, Free National Movement, had a leader of Minnis, Hubert Minnis, there was a challenge for his leadership position. I think the group was led by, help me out,
Loretta
Butler Turner, right, where she commanded the majority of the opposition, or the persons under the FNM at that time joined or supported Loretta
Like she
Butler.
commanded the support of the majority of members of the opposition in the House.
This was unprecedented. I don't think it happened before, where it removed the FNM leader, who was Hubert Minnis, who was leader of the opposition at that time. It removed him from having the title of being the leader of the opposition, and that title was put on to Loretta Butler Turner, who had her own splinter FNM group.
And so I think the GG would have revoked his title as leader of the opposition and then appointed Butler Turner at the request of the majority.
Yes.
Right, as leader.
And she became the official leader of the opposition. I'm not sure what political party she was in charge of, but it was similar to how they had two Valley Boys. They had two FNMs.
Well, but she became, here's the thing. She became the leader of the FNM in the House.
Leader of the FNM in the House.
Yeah.
And Hubert Minnis became the leader of the FNM out of the House.
Well, the question is, from that point, right, they had to go to convention.
She didn't go to convention. He remained leader.
Of the party.
Of the party.
Right.
And she became the leader.
In the House. Because remember, we've seen that before where Tommy Turnquest, sir, and forgive me for saying it like that, but Turnquest
familiarized. Okay.
was the leader of the party, but he didn't win a seat, right?
He didn't win a seat.
And so there was a leader
of the House, Alvin Smith. I'm almost sure it's
right,
Alvin
like
Smith.
I'm not sure who it was, right? But so we'd seen that situation before.
Yes, we've seen that.
Right.
But I'm just putting all of this in for our conversation where we move into or moving toward now.
So here's what I want to. I'm going to call the names of the people who engage in this conversation,
and only because it was mentioned inside a third conversation,
right?
And who mentioned their names,
and that the main discussants also reference some of these names, right? And so the conversation involved Mr. Jerome Fitzgerald,
former MP,
Zhivago Lang, former MP, former Minister, I think, of State for Finance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's an individual named Damien, and I just presumed it was Gomez.
Okay,
I'm
so
not sure. But
we're going to limit it as the KC, Damien Gomez.
Right. The contributions were received, right? Like they were sound, they were sensible, and they received in a way that made me just say, this is likely Damien Gomez.
The constitutional lawyer.
Right.
Yes.
Professor Gilbert Morris.
Okay.
Sir Sean McQueenie.
Casey also.
Casey.
Okay.
Sir Michael Barnett.
Casey also.
Casey. And then Mr. Lyndon Nairn.
Yes.
Right.
An insurance professional.
Right. Who offered, and in the conversation, right, he offers a non-legal perspective.
Yes.
Which
he's a public intellectual.
Which was very helpful.
Yes.
Right, in framing this conversation. That's why I want to mention those names. These are people who were part of the conversation and was very helpful. And so the question was put on the table. And the way that I got into the conversation, I was just kind of, you know how you just bait me? Like I'm a
antagonist.
And maybe I was an antagonist. And I thank the members of the conversation for receiving my engagement as such.
Yes. So it's safe to say these are people who could be considered as part of the Bahamian intelligentsia.
Absolutely.
These are intellectuals who have proven themselves locally and abroad to be some of the brightest minds in the Bahamas.
And here's a more important point, that these individuals have context.
Or history?
History
Okay.
that provides greater context, right, to the discussion.
A person like Shivago lying with institutional knowledge.
Right.
In terms of governance and the procedures of what happens into the house.
Right. Same thing with Sir McQueenie.
Okay.
With McQueenie, Casey. Institutional knowledge of the history of governance at the time of the framing of the Constitution, right? And the history of the party that was the administration for 5 terms, right? Leading from independence. So the conversation is full. We're going to get into it right now. So here's what happened. Like, conversation was thrown on the table. It's too lengthy to go through every step. The question of how can you remove a sitting prime minister? And I may have thrown in, it's the same way that you remove a leader of the opposition.
Okay.
It turns out that that's not true.
So let's do, again, a preamble. We are quite aware that the Governor General appoints the Prime Minister.
Right.
So we don't have to go over that point.
Right.
We are quite aware that the Prime Minister, or a person becomes the Prime Minister by heading a political party.
Right.
Right, that's correct so far, right?
Right.
We're quite aware of that. So you need to be the leader of a political party that is in the House of Assembly, right? Or to have the majority seats or the majority support to become the Prime Minister of the Bahamas.
Okay.
Go ahead. Explain that.
Stick right there. So let me also add to the preamble. The conversation sits on the interpretation of provisions in Chapter 6, the executive in the Constitution, Chapter 6 of the Constitution, the executive, Article 73, 1, A and B, and Article 74, 1 and 2, subsections 1 and 2, right? And so for those who want to follow on or start doing their own research, the discussion rests on interpretation of provisions within these 2 articles in the Constitution, Chapter 6, that speaks to the executive, right? That's the title of Chapter 6. And so questions thrown out, like, can you remove a sitting PM? And I'm sure I threw in there, yeah, man, you could do it the same way you could remove the leader of the opposition. Mr. Fitzgerald enters the conversation and says, no, that's not correct. MPs don't remove a PM, only party members.
Okay, let's slow that down.
Right.
Because I'm confused now, and I want you to explain the difference.
Okay, so
the difference between the MP and the difference between a party member. What do you mean? Because
right.
it got a little confusing there.
Because MPs are members of the House of Assembly elected, right? Members, they were elected as an MP, and they sit in the House of Assembly. A party member is a party member.
Okay, let me pause. Recently and historically, and let's go back to recently, the FNMs did a vote of no confidence to the Prime Minister.
Right.
They are MPs. They're not a part of the PLP, Progressive Liberal Party. But surely the exercise, that the idea that they had a vote of no confidence and put it on the table or whatever, debates, whatever it is, suggests that a vote of no confidence can come, or removal of a Prime Minister can come other than being in the party, because they're just MPs.
Okay, so members of the opposition put forward a vote of no confidence on the Prime Minister. Members of the opposition didn't have sufficient numbers by themselves for a successful vote. They would have had to have pulled the administration onto their side for a no vote, right? For a successful vote of no confidence. And so in this instance, they didn't have enough numbers. So the exercise stopped at that point.
Okay, and that's putting a suggestion, not a suggestion, like what could have happened. Let's say that they did pull the numbers. PRP and
Okay, but let me take it back a step, right?
Okay, go ahead.
So Fitzgerald offers that no, only party members can remove a sitting prime minister.
But see, the wording there is two different. One is, no, and I hear you, and I want to say that. I'm not talking about putting in a prime minister. I'm talking about
removing.
Just removing.
No,
the prime
absolutely.
minister. Okay,
See, this is why the conversation is so fascinating, right? And so I threw in, no, that's not Fitzgerald, pardon me, responds, right? That's not quite so. And he references Article 73(1). Whenever there shall be occasion for the appointment of a prime minister, the governor general shall appoint as prime minister the member of the House of Assembly who is the leader of the party which commands the support of the majority of members of that house. Right? So basically the conversation sits on interpretation of the word party in that provision.
Yes.
Right? Does party mean political party, defined, or does party mean group of people?
Because you can form a party.
Right. So, Casey, Sir McQueenie, Casey, Sir Barnett are the main discussants in this conversation.
Okay.
McQueenie offers that essentially a strict reading of Article 73(1)(a) is, and I will read from his opinion, there is absolutely no doubt that under Article 73(1)(a) of the Constitution, the Prime Minister must be the leader of the party that commands the support of the majority of members of the House of Assembly. The language is clear. It does not say that the selection is based on who the majority of elected members of the majority party think it should be. No, it says that the selection is based entirely on who the leader of the majority party is. Stick a pin there. Right? Barnett, Sir Barnett, responds and says he disagrees and offers a different interpretation of the word party in that space. Right? So here we are. Now back to the example you gave.
Okay.
It says a vote of no confidence.
No vote of no confidence.
The Prime Minister loses the vote.
Okay, that's where we are now.
It's a successful vote of no confidence and the Prime Minister loses. The Prime Minister has, I think, 7 days to either resign or call for the dissolution of the House that will lead to a general election.
That too has happened in our history, where the House was dissolved and we went into a general election. And there was a question regarding, I don't know my memory now, Hubert Ingram, where he was critiqued by his membership. And he said, no, I am the Prime Minister. And if you are questioning what is it the direction of our party is going, then let's put it back to the people. And he called a general election anyway in regards to that.
So listen, it's 11:02.
Okay.
Let's go to the break. Let's close out on the clock. And when we come back from on the clock, we're going to pick up right there. If the Prime Minister loses the vote of no confidence, what happens next?
What happens next?
I want you all, please stay tuned. This is fascinating. Like this, when your Grammy tell you, why you don't go in the room and read the Constitution? She didn't know how fascinating it could be.
It is good that we having such public discussions are happening, and there are people taking time out to explain, going in detail, even though it's for the benefit of a limited group. But such questions and explanations need to be made public that behaving people can digest it and say, okay, I understand.
Right.
I understand.
Absolutely. So we go into a break. This has been On the Clock with Erin Greene. Please stay tuned. Guardian Radio AM with C.A. Nuri is up next. I know you can't remove a sitting mummy. No. I know that, buddy. You can't, because your daddy will get divorced first.
Yes.
Right? Before, it's difficult. Anyway, we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, streaming on GuardianTalkRadio.com and the Guardian Radio app, Nassau, Bahamas.